Okay, we are back to talk about Pluribus, the season one finale, episode 9, La Chica o el Mundo. This episode written by Alison Tatlock and Gordon Smith and directed by Gordon Smith. On day 71, after the joining, Kisimayu assimilates into the others with the help of her Peruvian village. After she does, they pick up and vacate the village altogether. On day 60, Manusos arrives in Albuquerque, but Zoja doesn't want to be around when he reaches Carol. Using a translator app, Manusos conveys to Carol that he wants to either reverse what has happened or destroy the others. But Carol tries to convince him they are not evil and are still human inside. When Manusos learns about Zoja, he demands to speak to her. Carol makes her leave after Zoja has answered many of Manusos' questions, but he asks for another person and has sent Rick. When Zosia begins convulsing in front of Carol, Carol finds Manusos causing the others to seize while using a radio frequency to try to convert Rick back to who he was before. Carol then leaves with Zosia, where they take a 2-week vacation around the world, and Carol admits how happy she is. Zosia promises her it's just the tip of the iceberg, and she'll be much happier when she joins them. Zosia admits that they are working to assimilate Carol using stem cells from her frozen eggs, and she has maybe 2 or 3 months before they do so. Carol then has Zosia bring her back home with a large crate containing an atom bomb and tells Manusos he wins and it's time to save the world. I guess thinking back on this season and a show that certainly is very interesting from the sci-fi perspective and interesting from the perspective of the what they approached the show. They did answer a lot of questions along the way. So I guess in
Yeah.
hindsight, this was always the way the first season was going to end, where the two of them meet and decide, all right, we have to do something about this. I don't know why I would have thought that maybe we would have gotten more, but we've gotten a lot of answers along the way, but clearly have set up what's going to happen next.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I think you and I at least, and I'm sure others, were hoping for more, hoping it would go further. And I think it did start to become pretty clear a few weeks ago that it was going to go like this.
Yeah.
Even as you were sitting here saying, "Oh, I hope that they meet in episode 8. I hope they
Yes.
don't put that off until episode 9." And it's like, well, we were saying that because we know how TV works, and we could predict that they were probably going to put it off until episode 9, right?
Right. Right.
uh, and okay, I mean, it's interesting. One thing to talk about ultimately will be where this leaves us. We can speculate a little bit about where it'll go from here. We know it's been renewed for season 2. I mean, it was a 2-season order to begin with, right?
Hmm.
Um, do you want to start there? I don't know. What thoughts about this episode?
Yeah, I thought I think one of the questions that I really wanted to have answered was what would the meeting be like when Carol finally and Manusos finally interact? And I think this in some ways expected, but also it was a story told in a very interesting way. This idea of how they had to communicate, how they really are wanting the same thing, but are on kind of still on opposite sides. That dynamic I thought was interesting. So I was very pleased with what we uncovered, what mysteries it introduced, and where this was left off to say, okay, there's a lot of paths we can go down. And now the question is, how much time do we have to speculate in between whenever we get season two?
Yeah. Okay, so good. Let's start there with their meeting and so on, because that's a central thing. And then work through some of the character beats. I know that
Yeah.
there are some questions maybe to think through in terms of the motivations and exactly what happens. To me, it all ultimately makes sense, but there are some things to talk about. To start, I think we were discussing this a bit already last week, how I'm tempted to say, like, if Carol and Manusos had met 2 months ago, it would have been
Hmm.
different, right?
Definitely.
So that's
Definitely.
one thing to think about is Carol's character arc as opposed to Manusos's character arc.
Right.
He shows up and is very, very paranoid, doesn't want to go into her house, is thinks that they have her house bugged. Well, he doesn't use that word right there. So there's humor in the translations and everything.
Insecto? Yeah.
It's insecto. Um, and then they have the conversation on the umbrella, and there's antagonism throughout all of that, right? Where I guess this is one of the big things to talk about is Carol's character development.
Hmm.
But also with Amanusos, briefly, I guess, you have to think about how they've really established his total antipathy and unwillingness to talk to the others at all and all of that.
Right.
We also have to think about what that implies in terms of his knowledge, right?
Yeah.
The fact that he hasn't interacted with them at all, he's just been spending this whole time feeling like, this is invasion of the body snatchers. Um, no, they're not even human, really. It
Yeah.
would be better
Yeah.
for them to die if we can't
Yeah.
undo this, and so on. It's very extreme, but I think part of what feeds into that is he hasn't even talked to them to the level that Carol has. I don't even know if at the beginning of this episode he has gotten the explanation about the nucleotides and stuff.
Yeah. I don't think he has very much information at all. He probably has deciphered some things and some initial conversations at the very beginning about what has happened, but he then immediately retreated from them and wanted nothing to do with them. So he has been holed up in a storage facility that even refusing food, and so he has not interacted with them at all. I think that that interaction he had when his mother approaches him when he's about to begin the journey. My speculation is that's the first conversation he's had with them in weeks at that point, a couple of weeks since this all started. Maybe they've tried to call him, but now it seems like his arc is interesting in that he is learning quickly about what's happening. He's learning how what these people are and what they're doing, but he's also learning, I think, how Carol has used one of them. And that is, we'll talk about Carol's arc with that in a minute, but this has now become okay, I don't want anything to do with them. I'm certainly not going to assimilate with them, but I can now use them to gain what it is I'm trying to achieve. And that's no problem as we see doing that with some of these people.
Right, and then it's something of an interesting repetition to what Carol did with Zoja earlier in the season, where she
Hmm.
handcuffs herself to her and tries to get information out of her. I mean, there's difference in the repetition. It's not exactly the same, but it is meaningfully a repetition, right? Because what Carol was trying to do was force Zoja to tell her how to undo the joining
Hmm.
when she makes the whole world cry.
Yeah.
Um, and maybe there's a question here. Apparently, Manu says so first he gets Zoja because he's already like keying into the fact that Carol's got a special thing for Zoja, right?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And gets information from her where she tells him apparently everything. But then after Carol breaks that up, he just says, "Send me another one," right? This
Hmm.
guy, Rick. But Zoja tells us that before he starts doing his experiment, I
Yeah.
guess you could call it, he warns them all, right?
Hmm.
Before he's like, yeah, So we see Zoja preparing herself by lying down on the floor. And then you can also imagine around the world, like when Carol yelled and millions of people died, it was because they were in the middle of doing stuff, right?
Right. Right.
You're flying a plane, you're driving down the highway or whatever. Did he give them all sufficient warning? I think we're supposed to take it that he did, right? At least we're not told that
Yeah.
a bunch of people died. Excuse me. So
Yeah.
good.
No, I say anybody that was, you could pull off the side of the road, you could stop the dangerous thing you're doing. There's presumably not many people flying planes at this point, so yeah, there's a sense of okay, this is going to happen. I'm about to tell you, I certainly am going to use this for purposes that I want, but I'll at least give you and this all goes back to what does he know based on his conversation with Zoja, which we hear zero of, but. We hear from Zoja that he has asked, I think, quote, specific and detailed questions. So I think from that, we're meant to presume that he's learned just about everything that Carol has learned at this point. But it was just a matter of he was able to grasp a lot in a couple of hours, it seems like.
Yeah, and I'm not sure because I was particularly keyed in on the question of whether he'd learned about Carol and Zoja's romantic relationship,
Hmm. Hmm.
and the answer is yes, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, presumably he asked her about other stuff.
I would
What?
think the conversation would have started like, what's the nature of your relationship? And then once he uncovers that, it's okay, what have you guys talked about? What have you told
Yeah.
her? What does she learn? What does she know that I don't know? Those types of things, just sort of uncovering those layers from there.
Yeah, I would have to imagine, right? So maybe through that conversation, he also gets the nucleotide stuff.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't want to put too much weight on that anyway, because even if he hasn't gotten it yet, Carol will tell him shortly,
Yeah. Yeah.
presumably. Um, just to circle back very briefly, I was on the path of a question I didn't quite pose, which was uh, was what Manusos did worse than what Carol did,
Mhm.
right? Because it seems like it, and I mean, it feels like it watching the show, but and maybe from the perspective of the others, it is because of the intention behind it.
Hmm.
But that was the thing also, I think, when Soja made everyone cry. I'm sorry, Carol made everyone cry with it was the fact that she was intentionally doing this, and that's why they all left
Yeah.
Albuquerque and so on. Um, so I don't know. There's just something of a question there. I think that's worth pondering a bit. I don't know how much it matters to the show, but on a like philosophical or ethical type level, where I think when Carol did what she did, a bunch of people died, and
Hmm.
when Manusos did what he did in this episode, I don't think that people died. Yet his whole approach is so much harsher that maybe it seems worse, but I'm not sure it is.
Yeah, knowing the harm you're going to inflict, knowing also that you're doing this for your own purposes. I mean, you couldn't say it's truly altruistic purposes. They're trying to save the world, but yeah, the sense of he has learned apparently through these conversations he is going to harm slash kill slash do a lot of damage to these people and intentionally still go about it anyways, just to sort of this the many versus the one. So trying to save one person, he's potentially harming thousands, hundreds of we just don't know.
Yeah. And even with that scene where Carol's handcuffed to Zoja and so on, she didn't exactly know she was going to make the whole world cry.
Exactly,
She didn't exactly
exactly.
know how it was going to go. So, yeah, unsurprisingly, that causes the others to all leave Albuquerque again. Um, and Carol decides that she's going to go with. She's going to
Yes,
go,
yes.
she's going to choose La Chica, right?
Over El Mundo, yeah.
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 Um,
Before we get too far away with that, can we talk just for a second about what it is that Manusos is doing to Rick? So he
yeah,
is
yeah. Definitely wanted
he's
to talk about that at
using
some point.
what I can tell, he's using the one radio frequency he found that has some sort of anomaly with it. And he believes that, and I guess we're led to believe that if this member of the hive mind is influenced by, is connected to, here's this radio frequency, there's something in there that can help pull him away from the hive, and that's what he's trying to do. I guess I had questions about, is that actually what he's trying to accomplish? How did he know that would work? And was that can't what would have been his original intention was by listening to these radio frequencies at the beginning was just to sort of try to hear what's going on.
Yeah, so here's how I read this. First, I agree with the last thing you said. I think he was scanning the frequencies more to just try to find anything, you know,
Yeah,
maybe to find someone to talk to,
right.
um, who was also unaffected, We saw his whole methodology where he would stay on it for a certain amount of time to see if he heard anything.
Hmm.
And he's got this one where he has heard something, but it's not a person talking or anything like that. It's just this kind of weird,
Yeah.
noise, as it were, right? Um, okay, so that's how I read that. And then in this scene, I don't think he at all like knows that listening to this radio frequency can undo the joining or something like that.
Mhm.
I think he's gotten the idea that hey, maybe.
Let me experiment
Um,
with it and see what happens.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's why I called it an experiment before. But then also it doesn't work. So when it comes down to it, I don't think that that's right. So he
Yeah.
doesn't know, but I think it's also not true.
Yeah.
At the same time, there definitely is something going on with this radio frequency, which is interesting. And we see him. It's funny. He's doing the stuff that I was saying maybe you would do, right? He's got a bunch of books from the library.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly right. Yeah.
so I don't know. I mean, this is one where I don't know how much we can speculate about it because I don't know how plausible it's going to be, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We've got two main things with regard to the joining now. One is this RNA sequence, this nucleotide.
Hmm.
Is it at all plausible that by, I mean, again, we've talked about this before, it's transmittable in general just by like saliva.
Right,
I
right,
don't,
right.
I don't think this is really scientifically super plausible that like someone could kiss you and now all of a sudden,
Yeah.
you'd be part of this hive mind collective or whatever. The radio frequency, though, seems to me also to be involved in that. My best guess would be that that frequency he's picking up is somehow what's being transmitted between all of the others to keep their hive mind going.
Yeah, there has to be some sort. It's not a. I'm trying to think of the right word. It's not some sort of consciousness that they share. I mean, it can't be. It has to be something or some force that is joining them together somehow. And is it that radio frequency, or that is something to do with it? I mean, certainly we just don't know enough at this point yet. But to just have again, we're suspending a lot of disbelief here, but to have some sort of RNA nucleotide sequence connect people's minds, it just doesn't necessarily compute.
Right. So it's like, okay, so I don't think this is plausible in terms of actual science, but I could
Hmm.
see its plausibility in terms of a science fiction story
Sure. Yep.
that
Yep.
they are all giving off something in the electromagnetic spectrum that is connecting their minds, right?
Correct. Yes.
Because it is the case, that in the brain there's synapses firing, electricity in general is kind of like a fascinating magical thing if you start pondering it in ways we don't
Yeah.
tend to, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it is really weird if you think about it that we're sitting here right now talking on Zoom, and this is all, when it boils down to it, um, electricity firing in the chips on our computers. You know
Right,
what I
right, right.
mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
So it makes sense to me as a sci-fi premise that it's ultimately going to be something like that, not radio
Yeah.
waves per se, but on the electromagnetic spectrum to where it's picked up. And then that would imply that what they're going to try to do is disrupt that transmission.
Yes, which is what he's clearly studying in those books. He's got books on electricity, electromagnetic fields, how they work. I think the last sort of question I have from this is he seems to have a very purposeful order of he causes them to seize and then introduces the radio frequency. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I guess my question is, what would happen if you introduced it without them seizing? Is it just what they're normally receiving in their minds, or something that's going in and out of them because of this is how they share that? And there's something about the seizing that causes something to break down there. I'd be interested to know, is there any difference if he introduces that to them in just a normal set of circumstances? Maybe he's tried that, but we just don't see it.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm mostly tempted to say that he's just on the wrong track with what he's
Yeah,
doing to our friend Rick
yeah.
or what have you, right?
Poor Rick,
Um,
yeah.
I'm speculating that at that point he almost has it backwards. It's not that the frequency would help them, it's that what he's picking up is the
Yeah,
frequency between them, where
yeah,
then it would be a question of how do we how do we disrupt that?
yeah. How do we destroy that frequency? Yeah, that connection. Yeah.
One thing I think is interesting, Ryan, I was thinking about is we know that they've got season two,
Hmm.
and we've heard from Vince Gilligan in interviews and so on that he's got ideas for, I don't know what, 4 seasons. I'm not sure if he's put a number on it. But that one Rich Eisen interview I watched, he was like, "I've got tons of ideas, more than I had for
Yeah.
Better Call Saul." Like, yeah, I don't know if you really do, but okay. Um, but I started thinking about this, that it wouldn't really surprise me, given the Vince Gilligan of it all, if um say in season 2 or at the end of season 2
Hmm.
they do undo the joining,
Yeah.
but the show continues,
Okay.
right? Like, so, and then all of the others remember what it was like.
Yeah. Okay.
So they're like this. Like I can see
Ah.
them if it were a different kind of sci-fi show, you'd almost expect that if they succeed in undoing the joining, that would be the end of the show, right?
Right.
I just got
Right.
to thinking about how with this one, I could see it if they were to continue the show beyond that point, right? So like
Yeah.
I think Carol and Manusos could be successful in season 2 and have it not be the end of the show. And then that might be interesting to have to grapple with the aftermath of having taken this away from everyone.
Right. 7 billion people wanted to go back to the way it was because they were so happy and because it was peaceful and all that. Yeah, exactly.
Right, yeah. So we'll see. You know, hopefully they get to make as much of this show as they want to on the creative end. Um
Yeah. So Zoja and Carol go off on their
yeah,
world tour.
yeah. So we have to think about Carol. I think it was last week I was suggesting taking the show as a character drama. I think that might be fruitful. I know that there are some people in the world who've been a little frustrated and like maybe the show's popular, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's for everyone. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
I saw someone on social media talking about how they were fast forwarding things until there was dialogue.
Okay.
Just don't watch the show.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, it's something to decide. What's going on with Carol? And I know we talked about this some before, and we have been throughout. But I guess the question is, first, I'll just pose the question to you. Does it make
Hmm.
sense to you that she decides to leave town with Soja and so on?
So I'll preface my answer by saying I decided to really look into what they had to say about this question, the people who made this show. And they have done interviews saying that they thought they had done enough to pay off with their romantic entanglement from the last episode and Carol's choice this episode to go off with her. I personally disagree with that. I don't
Yeah.
think that it has done enough. I don't think the Carol that we were introduced to in the first 3 or 4 episodes of the season, and I guess we're just meant to believe that 30 days in isolation or whatever would lead her to become this person. But I just don't. I am not personally there yet. That after this amount of time, less than 2 months, she is choosing to turn her back on everyone else in the world just so she can have this relationship with someone that she clearly knows is a we and not an I.
Yeah. So here's the best I can do. In the beginning of the series, Carol loses her beloved Helen, right?
Hmm.
When the joining occurs. Her first reaction is along the lines of, this is the end of the world, right? I've got to, well, I don't know. She even immediately sets out to try to undo it, but to some degree she does, right?
Hmm.
Insofar as she makes contact with the other unaffected people who speak
Yep.
English.
Yep.
Now, if you recall that scene, she walks into that room expecting that everyone is with her on the thought that we have to undo this,
Yep.
and they're not. Um, they've got varying dispositions towards it, but none of them are really with her. It's like, hey, this isn't so bad, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and she's very harsh, right? So that doesn't work, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
She tries to contact Manusos when she hears about him. That doesn't go well on the phone. This is early on, right?
Yep.
Then she starts undertaking her kind of investigation or whatever, which meaningfully fails, right? After she
Yeah.
makes the whole world cry outside the hospital, everyone leaves town. She continues, right? She discovers the HDP.
Right.
Yeah, that's the right acronym, right?
Hmm.
They're eating people. And she thinks, oh, well, this will do it for sure, right? So she sets off to Vegas to show Kumba. Kumba already knows.
Yeah. It's
It's
troubling.
troubling, but John Cena explained it pretty well,
Right.
right? Um, and I know I'm recapping the whole show, but I want to think about, the character development aspect of it, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So she's got that disappointment. Again, we talked about how when they're having breakfast, she makes this comment about going to find a room in the hotel, how he reacts, she then says she's kidding.
Hmm.
Then we have the solitude. Then we have the loneliness, then the fireworks and beer and you know, and when we were talking about that episode, I expressed I didn't think that I didn't feel like they quite did the work
Yeah, 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 yeah.
personally. So I think we're on similar pages along those lines, but I see what they were going for. All right. Then so she's so desperately lonely, it's come back and she and Zoja hug in the cul-de-sac.
Hmm.
Um and so on. So look, I mean, like I do think that all of this makes sense, even if I feel like maybe they didn't quite do enough for me in terms of establishing the desperate loneliness.
Yeah.
And even though part of me agrees with you that I'm not sure they did enough to establish the romance,
Mm. Yeah.
I see how it does make sense in terms of, but Carol, insofar as look, it's not just, oh, I was alone for 40 days or whatever. It's the hopelessness. It's the
Yeah.
despair of it. I'm
Yeah.
alone in the
I
world.
I tried so much. I even tried to tell them that they're eating each other. I even tried to tell them that you are losing yourself. You're losing your individuality. Nothing has worked. I guess maybe my only thought is I mean, she literally was doing this stuff for 12, 13, 14 days before this isolation started. Just it doesn't seem like a heavy lift if you were going to be taking on the mission of saving the world. But again, that's just I think it's just taking myths at this point on my part.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, like, look, I get it. I mean, what you're saying, where there's some contrast with Manusos insofar as he's more stubborn or something. But I think with Carol, okay, so it's not, again, I think it's not just the solitude, it's the despair.
Mm.
And then when she asked them all to come back and hug Zoja and so on, it's a real kind of turning point for her insofar as she's decided, I'm just going to make the best of this that I can,
Yeah,
right? So she's already at that point meaningfully given up the idea of quote saving the world, I think.
yeah,
Then, as we were talking about last week, it's somewhat delusional, but it's like she's trying to convince herself of Zoja's individuality.
yeah, yeah.
Um, she
Where,
likes
where
this.
I where I do find myself empathetic towards Carol and sort of see that I can see her going down this path is it it's not that she has changed her mind necessarily on the I want to save the world or want to change everyone, but it's when Manusos is bordering on activities and goes through with activities that is going to make them leave again. And
Mhm.
Carol saying, I can't go through that again. And so if you're going to do this stuff, that I'm going to take Zoja, I'm going to get out of here together because I can't go through that again.
And I think that the big thing that we have to buy for this to work is that Carol falls for Zoja.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the reason we talk about falling in love, we use that phrase, it's not entirely rational, right?
Hmm.
So, but we have to, I think that's, or at least what the show wants us to buy, or for this to really work. So, if you don't quite feel like the show did the work to land that for you, fair enough. I want to say, but still, if you more conceptually or whatever accept that, then I think you can see what the show is doing. Right? She
Yes.
it's of course it doesn't quite make rational sense, and Carol at some level knows that. She knows
Yeah.
that
Exactly.
it's a we and so on. Um, but she's getting Zoja to say I, and has sufficiently convinced herself of Zosia's individuality and
Yeah.
has fallen in love with this woman.
Yeah.
And then that's the problem, right? And I think that the series does indicate that sufficiently in this episode, like the way that she reacts when um Manusos is even talking to Zosia and so on and
Yeah.
so forth, you know.
Yeah, you cannot do anything to try to reclaim what you know I have built with this person, or take that away from me. And where I can see this working is that in Carol's mind, even though she deep down clearly understands who Zosia is, and it's not an I, and she's not an individual, and it's just a, walking encyclopedia. What she has built up is that this relationship that we have together, where you are who you are and I am who I am, and that's not going to change. I'm never going to give you consent for it to change. That obviously in this conversation fundamentally has shifted. And so until we learn that, Carol is thinking they can just live this life forever, right? She can be happy with this. She can be content. She can be herself. She'll, get Zosia to sort of role play the role that she wants. But when she learns that things are happening behind her back without her consent, yeah, that's where things can pivot. And so I can see that they set Carol up to sort of live this. I mean, fantasy life is not the right thing, but in this world where it can exist in a way that she wants it for as long as she wants it that way.
I mean, well, it's interesting. Fantasy was the term I was about to use as well, so maybe it's more apt than you think. I don't know. How do you take the term? But this is what I was going to say, right? It's like she's decided to buy into the fantasy to live
Yep.
it the best as she can, right? Um, she likes Zoja. I think she falls in love with Zoja,
Hmm.
which isn't rational. And then the thing in that scene in the ski lodge,
Yeah.
um, part of what's going on there, I think, structurally, is that conversation brings home to Carol, I don't know, the real, if you like,
Yeah.
like she's been trying to delude herself and sort of buy into this fantasy that Zosia is an individual that she's fallen in love with. Um, and look, and go have a good time. It was like, do
Yeah.
whatever you want in the entire world, basically. Um, and so to discover that the others are working on her eggs to get the
Hmm.
stem cells in order to do the joining with her, whether she likes it or not.
Yeah.
Really, it lands as this betrayal, but again, I think also just confrontation with the reality of things, where now the fantasy just came crashing down.
Yeah. That I think that's exactly right. And we've talked about this before, but this reveal of the frozen eggs and extracting stem cells, I think this is a fan theory that's been widely speculated that here paid off, that they are, this is what was brought up in the cold open of the first or second episode when they're visiting that ice hotel. And this comes back to, to be very, very important for what they're trying to do here. And yeah, just the sense that Carol can't have this thing forever, as much as she may want it to be the way that, she's essentially playing her own version of what Mr. Diabate is doing in Las Vegas, just having life the way she wants it with whom she wants it. But knowing that there's a shelf life on this of a couple of months now, and behind the scenes, they're never going to stop trying to make her like them. That's where I guess the straw breaks, and she said, "That's it. I'm done with this."
Yeah, and I kind of meant to revisit that scene in Vegas, and I forgot or didn't get around to it before we started recording. I think they fudge a little bit, but where they don't lie to her
Hmm.
about, Diabate says they'd have to do the surgery to, extract your stem cells, and it's painful, so they can't do it without your consent.
Yeah.
And she asks them if that's true, and then doesn't give her consent, and so on, right?
Yeah.
Um, I was amused how in this episode, Zosia kind of tries to fudge it by going subjunctive, you know? She goes into the subjunctive move, right? She says, like, that
Yeah.
would be the case.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
That would be correct.
that would be correct. Okay, wait, Carol's like, wait, would be?
Yeah.
Yes. Grammar.
Well, and since you brought up sort of the sense of them being lawyerly and how they speak to Carolyn, how they can lie and not lie, that's why I thought it was such an interesting scene to open the episode with this Kusimayu and
Hmm.
her joining, and she's a part of this village in Peru, and basically for what 70 days they've been putting on an act. They've been putting on sort of role playing for her that you do what we want you to do. You come over to us. Everything's going to remain the same. This, life that you love, the goat that you love, everything that you know, it's all just happy and just joyous. And the sense of as soon as she joins, it's pack up and get out of there. So while yes, they're not lying to her, it's all a farce. Everything. It's just now let's go be a part of the efficiency machine after you join us.
Yeah, it's funny because given what we know about the others, um, there was a moment when I was thinking during that scene about like why are they still living in this village? That doesn't really make sense for them. And realizing, well, oh, they're just doing it for her, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't know if everyone was on like I don't know if that's ahead of things or not, but I
Yeah.
was to me, so after she joins, of course, the first thing they do is just pack up and leave, right? Because
Yep.
as we've seen, it's like, no, we're going to be efficient, right? And so it's interesting how the show had established things to the point where, as that scene unfolded, I started thinking, like, wait, why aren't they all like sleeping on the floor of the basketball arena? This is
Exactly.
weird.
Yeah.
Why would they maintain this little village? That's not efficient in a global way,
Right.
you know. She had said she wanted this from the beginning. So presumably she did consent to the stem cell thing,
Yeah.
although it's an interesting wrinkle that when it comes down to it, it's still more of like an aerosol thing that she inhales.
Yeah. So I guess they extract the stem cells, they turn it into some. I mean, they don't want to hurt her any more than they had to, so they turn
Yeah.
it into something that enters her bloodstream that way, much like the saliva did through others.
Yeah, I just that seemed noteworthy to me insofar as if um if they do manage to pull it off with Carol's stem cells from her eggs, then you would expect something similar,
Yeah.
where they just like pump it into her house or something like that.
It harkens back to the first episode where we see presumably the stuff drop from the planes. It wasn't that everybody had to kiss or whatever. It was just we're going to aerosol the whole world, and that's how it's going to take effect.
It's the chemtrails that they give everyone the 5G in their brains. And anyway, there's another narrative possibility for what might happen in the future, by the way, right? Um, what if they do successfully join with Carol and then
Yeah.
it's down to Manusos or
Oh
something?
yeah. That's true. Oh yeah.
Um, I don't know that they'll go that way, but it's possible. Let's see. Something else I was going to say, kind of circling back. Yeah. Go back. So I'm sorry, but back to Zoja briefly. Um, they're talking about Carol's talking about how happy she is. She's asking about the chemicals involved, the dopamine, the serotonin, the oxytocin, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it's just prior to that where she asks Zoja if um she's ever been in love before or something like that.
Mhm. Mhm.
I forget how she puts it exactly, but that's the thrust of
Yeah.
it.
Was there someone from your past or something like that?
Yeah, for the like original Zoja, we hardly even know how to refer. But anyway, the Zoja before the joining. And just yeah, there was a long time ago. Are they, with you now as part of the hive mind? No, right? So whatever the gender of this person, it doesn't even get mentioned. But we have to infer that Zoja's previous love died before the joining happened, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Carol makes that inference. Just, I'm sorry. Zoja is not sad.
No.
And it got me thinking about this as a general question in terms of like the importance of things like sorrow, grief, what have you, that the others don't experience,
That's
you
right.
know? And that
Yeah.
cuts to, I mean, like some of the stuff that happened earlier in the season as well. when they're saying, oh, like, oh, 8 million people died or whatever. They're
Yeah,
not
no,
sad about it.
no, no.
It's like that's unfortunate, right? So I don't
Yeah,
know. Any thoughts along those lines?
yeah, it's just as I always think about the line that Carol had. I forget what episode it is, but basically her saying, you know, something along the lines of congratulations, this is the last opinion you're ever going to form before before you're not able to anymore. So just sort of this idea of these are the things you're giving up. These are the individual things. These are the things that make you who you are. And yeah, happiness is a part of that, but a huge, huge part of that is suffering and sorrow and grief and all of these things that, Zoja is not who she once was and can never be beyond just playing what Carol wants because she does not have those experiences that she can, I think, draw from anymore. As that's a huge
Yeah.
component of this.
Well, it's kind of weird because surely, everyone in the however many billion people survived the joining had previous experience of these sort of negative affects. Everyone
Yeah.
had been sad, everyone had suffered, everyone, but that's gone now. So, um, not exactly the most novel point or question in the world, but something about that connection between
Yeah.
these, sorrow, suffering, grief, what have you, sadness, and meaningfulness, I guess,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
maybe also individuality.
Yeah.
Um, Brave New World, I mean, already did very similar things. But you read that book?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Back in high school, of course.
Yeah. So, I mean, anyway, we have no tangent about how this is similar and different from Brave New World, but in certain ways there is some similarity, although this is going further in terms of the sci-fi premise of everyone being connected up in this hive mind in some way,
Right.
right? Um, Circle that takes us back to one of the real central questions, I think, about the others, that they're not willing to harm anyone. They're certainly not willing to kill anyone, down to a fly, but down to an apple.
Hmm.
Um, but they are perfectly willing to force Carol into the joining against her will.
Yeah. As long as it
Um,
doesn't physically harm her, then they're willing to do it, which is quite the moral conundrum there.
well, I don't know what to say about this exactly. If it at one point in the previous episodes, Zoja said something about saving someone from drowning.
Hmm.
So we have to think about that sort of thing, but it is a kind of the broader question is about the ethicality of doing something to benefit someone against their will.
Yes. Yes.
So that whole space of thinking about paternalism and things like this, and this is an extreme version, but in order
Yeah.
for it to fit with their general kind of, I don't know, moral philosophy, as I understand it, I think it would have to be along these lines.
Yeah.
We're going to do this because it's going to be good for you. It's going to be
Right.
like saving
Right.
you from drowning. Um,
Yeah. Saving you from drowning, and we cannot help but do this.
yeah, there's also that aspect, which um, which definitely feels a little bit nefarious, you know. But it's interesting to me because it's like they generally respect autonomy and consent and all of that kind of stuff. But when it comes down to this, there's a, I don't know, there's a general kind of question in terms of moral philosophy there, I guess,
Yeah.
where they're siding completely on the side of that beneficence or whatever.
Hmm.
So, like, in other words, to pull it back to a more real world kind of example, like, I take it they would not respect a do not resuscitate order,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think you're
right?
right.
Like someone says, no, just let me die. It seems like they would go, no, 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 we're not gonna let you die. That's stupid, right?
Yeah.
So like they're really not respecting autonomy to the level that we probably would argue
Yeah.
for, at least that I would argue for. Let's see. A couple other things. to hit on that are more um, to the side. I don't know. I want to say something about the translator app. One, we finally most definitely got a smartphone. So, okay, we're definitely in the present.
Yeah.
And I've raised that question over the previous episodes of the podcast. I don't know why she's not using that phone more.
No,
It
I
looks like
know.
she's got
I
like a
know.
Samsung or something, by the way, which,
Yeah, it looks a little old, but certainly, I mean, relatively modern. Yeah,
but it doesn't look like an iPhone,
it
which I don't know.
doesn't. It doesn't.
It's an Apple TV show, so I would expect her to have an iPhone, but it doesn't look like an iPhone. It looks, it's too big, you know.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, I agree with
Um,
that. Yeah, I've noted that too.
not sure what kind of phone it is. There's some nice humor with the translator app, and with Carol and Manusos having their conversations through English, Spanish, Spanglish. Um, I kind of hope that they don't keep doing like I hope that his English gets better in the next season or something a little bit. Or I don't think her Spanish is going to get better. I saw someone on Blue Sky saying the way she speaks Spanish is a hate crime, and I'm kind of prone to agree.
Yeah, no, he is fluent, so there's certainly a pathway for that for that to happen.
Maybe they keep using the translator app, I guess.
Yeah. No,
So
I can see that over the course of time he improves more.
yeah. She gets the atom bomb at the end, hit on that, was wondering, what's in the crate at first and so on. Um, I don't think that she has any intention to ever use the atom bomb personally. What about you? I mean, I was thinking of this more as like she's going to show Manusos, look, these people give me an atom bomb,
Yeah,
you
here's
know?
what they'll do, but also a fail-safe. If you try to come after me, do something to me, we'll blow this whole thing up. I mean, just a we can do this anytime we want.
Maybe, but I don't know because it's like he was the one before who was like, it would be better for everyone in the world to die if we can't undo this, and she disagreed.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, it's a callback to earlier in the season. It's funny. It works as a note to land the season on, and but yeah, what you put on our notes, something about a note from Apple and Sony there.
Yes.
I didn't.
So
I missed this. What is this?
in the official podcast and in a couple of interviews, Vince Gilligan said we originally ended the season on like a, we just come out, they come have a conversation, he calls it a secret handshake. They come to an agreement, we're going to do this. And the note from Apple and Sony was, you need to make this ending bigger, something more dramatic. And they thought, well, we've got our version of the Breaking Bad machine gun in the trunk. Let's see if we can bring that back. And they said this was a great note from the studio. We said let's end it with an atom bomb, and that's where it ended up.
Well, yeah, no, I mean it works, and the helicopter of it all and everything,
Yeah.
and yeah, I definitely think it works. But I don't think that Carol has any intention of using the atom bomb ever. I think it's more of like a message to communicate to Manusos
Yeah,
how the
I think
others
you're.
would give her an atom bomb.
I think you're exactly right.
Um, all right, man. I think that about does it. Anything else you want to hit on before we wrap up?
I think that's it.
All right. Looking forward to season two whenever it comes. Hopefully they're on top of it. They got a two-season order to begin with. So hopefully they're on top of making season two. Um, anyhow, that'll do it for this week. Our plan is to be back shortly after the new year, talk about Stranger Things. Thanks always for listening to the podcast. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If so, please do leave a good rating, review, all that good stuff. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Greatly appreciate it. Now, if you want to follow the site on social media, search for TV Obsessive. You should find us. And as always, check out tvobsessive.com for written work on TV, past and present, and in the future. And happy holidays, happy new year coming up. And we'll see you probably around January 2nd.
Yeah, happy holidays. See you in 2026.